Supervisor for Elections has informed staff that any issues that we wish to be placed on the 2013 ballot will need to be submitted to the Brooks County Board of Elections by the end of January, so they could have it worked in with the state by February.
Okay. And on that, Mr. Mayor, I would like to, if this is the appropriate time, I would like to once again ask or make a motion that for the upcoming election, if the deadline is going to be by the end of January, I would like to make a motion for the council that we allow the citizens of Quitman the opportunity to vote on the ballot in November for Sunday alcohol sales. And I think that all we're doing is allowing them the opportunity to decide. And I'd like to make a motion that we have a referendum placed on the November ballot for Sunday alcohol sales.
We have a motion that we place on a referendum for the sale of Sunday alcohol sales on the ballot in November, to be November election.
Yes,
sir. Is there a second to that motion?
I believe that the citizens have the choice to decide whether they want alcohol sales on Sunday. I don't drink, and but they have these illegal people that sell alcohol on Sunday, and that would curb if I shut them down. So I second the motion to put it on the ballot.
Any questions on the motion? If not, those in favor, raise your hands, please. Those that oppose, raise your hands. And I'll vote no, not for it.
Just back to, and the only discussion I have is, I mean, everybody has it, I don't understand it. We're not deciding on the Sunday sale. Why would we be at this point not allowing the citizens to make their own decision? We're only placing it on the ballot for them to have their right to choose. So at this point, but that's not even placing it on the ballot, it's basically saying that we've made the decision that this shouldn't go. I would just like, I don't understand the opposition to it when it's revenue driven. It's not morality driven. And here we are at a point where we're saying that we're about the promotion and economic development, and then we're stifling whatever small amount of money or large amount of money at this time. We're just saying put it on there so that they can decide. Anybody can champion for or against it in the community, but for us to not give the opportunity, it's basically saying that we decided that we don't want this, instead of saying we're just giving them an opportunity to decide for themselves. I understand, is there no one who wants to vocalize or give their reason for saying that that people shouldn't even have the option to do it? That money is driving, so it's appropriate to let that money drive, whatever amount that it is, to drive straight out of our county to Dixie. The county's doing it. I can see if it was nowhere in the county, the county's doing it, and then we would sit and lost negotiations and say how we need to be a participatory in receiving funds that's based on sales tax, and then we would not. Then we would say these sales tax we don't want. This money, are we that rich in this city that we can say that we do not want additional revenue? That's what we're saying.
I'm not saying that. I'm just personally opposed to selling alcohol on Sunday.
But then that's where you would cast your ballot at the polls, and that's all I'm saying. I'm saying that just because that's your personal stance, it doesn't mean that another person doesn't have it. And when you go to the ballot, that's when you would say, these are my morals, or this is my reason, and that's where you should do it. So by saying that, you're saying that because I'm opposed, then you don't get the choice to make it.
Are not the Korean and the other restaurants selling?
No, on Sunday, and it wouldn't even affect that. It's just beer sales in convenience stores. It won't affect that. I'm just saying that he says that he's personally opposed to it, but I'm saying that I haven't even voiced what if I were yay or nay. I'm saying that let's give people the opportunity to do it, and that's my concern, is that we're stifling we're saying that our morals are forced upon the electorate, and that's not what we're here for. We're here to give them the opportunity to voice their opinion.
Is there any subsequent motion that want to be made at this point?
You know what, I would like to say that in my training, when I went to the newly elected official training, that they said our job as trustees is to represent the majority. And I guess just as long as what the majority wants is not a hindrance or a danger to the society, that we are compelled to let their voice be heard. And I believe that if we don't put it on the ballot, then we're doing it exactly the opposite.
Any subsequent motion? If not, move to the next one.
Item number 5 is elevated tank inspection. I think I've included the entire report for all the board to look at. We rotate the inspections of our tank yearly. This is the 500,000 gallon elevated storage tank located off Lafayette Street. This tank went under extensive rehabilitation at the beginning of last year, the end of 2011. As you note from the report, everything on these tanks are checked out structurally and safety-wise. Homeland Security nowadays, we have to be conscious that our water storage areas, water treatment plants, sewage treatment plants are secure. This one is inspected by an outside agency that we hire. All the safety apparatus was found to be in good working condition and locked. The coating of the tank was redone and is in good condition. All the outside coating is good. This basically keeps us from having a couple of $1 million expenditure if this tank were to go down. We routinely have it inspected. We have routine maintenance done on it on an every other year basis or as an as-needed basis. And this is the largest water tower that we have in town. It has received a good working order and good shape report. Item number 6 is our CDBG closeout. Staff is very pleased to announce that we have completed the 2009 CDBG project in our target areas. The Department of Community Affairs held a public hearing at Quitman City Hall on Thursday, January the 7th. The Department of Community Affairs basically audits our grant to make sure that we complied with all the regulations, hiring, Davis-Bacon Act, any of the other acts that pertain to the grant. We were given a clear review on the closeout of the project, and I'd be glad to answer any questions staff or commission or council may have. Our next item is in conjunction with that 2013 CDBG application. We are really under the wire on this. As you know, the application is due by April the 1st. This is a very extensive application process. If the council has any areas that they have concerns for target areas, we need to identify those immediately. Staff is already looking at an area, so we'll be at least getting some information compiled to make sure we meet the deadline of submission. This application, the RC will do a lot of the work, but they also leave a lot of it back on us. One of the biggest things that we have to do is documenting the history of the area as far as any problems that we outline in our application. And we also are required to do surveys door to door in the area. The RC will not do the surveys. We have to do those. Janice and I usually take to the streets and do those to make sure we put the best grant out there to be funded. So if any council member has an area, a town that they wish to consider a target area, please let me know. We have a formula for identifying those target areas to make sure they qualify and to make sure that a project would be funded by the federal government on those projects.
On that, Mr. Herring, will you give us, like, do you have a list of, so like if I was interested in the area being considered, then do you have the guidelines? Like if I'm going to pick, you have the guidelines so that I would know that the area I'm picking is even worthy of being a part of the project. Can you?
We have a pretty good rule of thumb as far as income levels. That's one of the big criteria, low to moderate income. It would have to fall into that category, a certain percentage. In addition to that, there would have to be a specific need. Notice we would have to identify drainage, water, sewer, any kind of road projects in those areas. We would have to identify to make sure that it's competitive when it moves up the line. A good example is our last target area. We submitted that target area. It was a fairly small target area, but we had very compelling problems in those areas. We had Mrs. Wilson's home from the school. She used to be a principal there. She had helped us document 4 feet of water in her front yard, and the entire block was 4 feet of water under. The entire block was underwater at least 4 feet, 3 to 4 feet in every major rain event. So that gave us a very compelling argument with DCA. The nice thing about that is we just can't write it in. We have to wait for those rain events or those inclement weather events. We try to take pictures. We try to get the neighborhood out there to write letters saying that they've had ditches overflow, they can't get to their vehicles, things like that. And we look at areas that are worse than normal, I should say, because we are competing with everybody else in the state of Georgia. There's a limited amount of funds, and whenever these grants come in, when these funds become available, it can't be just standing water in a ditch, because that's pretty much everywhere. They want something that is a public safety hazard, that prevents school buses, emergency vehicles, things like that. But yes, if you can give me an area, we can look at it and make a quick determination if we think it's going to meet the guidelines as far as income, and then also if we can identify projects that qualify for that, which most areas that we look at with drainage and those things will qualify. But yes, ma'am, if you'll get, because right now I'm concentrating my efforts around 2nd Street. 2nd Street, that neighborhood back by this elevated tower, because we have had sewer problems there. We have had water 3-4 feet deep in some areas in there. But that's only to give me something to go ahead and start working on, because not only do I have to identify it, but when we send this application in, the engineering has to be done. In other words, we don't just send in an application saying we want to put new sewer and water lines in here. We have to have an engineer actually draw those plans, and I mean the entire construction documents that have to accompany this. So it's not what we think. We have to make sure we get something that the engineer feels comfortable with is going to warrant this type of rehabilitation. I'm happy to say that our last target area, and I should have brought you pictures, we had, before Miss Wilson died, the pictures we sent to Atlanta were 4 feet of water. We've had at least one fairly good rain event since the completion of this project and had no standing water whatsoever in any of those areas. I think, Ms. Bradley, you were down there, you walked the neighborhood. It really was a tremendous improvement to the citizens in that particular area. But we do need to, we're moving ahead, so anytime if you want us to look at an area, please get one in. We'll make sure and go out there and start it.
We mentioned this area before, didn't we?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's one area we looked at.
At that last meeting.
Yes.
That's the same area we're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
Are there any areas that might disqualify, like the housing projects or
There, I would be telling you a story if I told you, Mr. Brown. I don't think the housing authority would be eliminated, but there's been pretty extensive work. It depends which one it is. There has been pretty extensive work done in Hill Street. I know has been redone, Battle Street, and I think they're in the process of the Highland Street homes are about finished. So the Circle would be the one last remaining.
And they've already started on it.
I think there's some plans. They apply. The housing authority applies for grants themselves on some rehabilitation, but I think they would qualify. I don't think there's any provisions unless the housing authority owns the roads. I think then there may be some difficulty. Gerald, is that correct?
I don't think so, but I doubt seriously if the housing authority owns any of the roads. They've probably been dedicated to the city or the county.
Item number 8 is railroad closure. Staff is working with the Department of Transportation and scheduled a public hearing for February the 5th at 6 p.m. We did this scheduling because it's right before our next council meeting for y'all to decide whether to move forward with this project of closing the 2 streets or not. We have already advertised in the Free Press. as required by the GDOT and our representatives at our last meeting. There's also been signs posted or notices posted at 2 crossings as required. The thing I would like to do tonight is try to iron out a date. And I've talked with GDOT and their representatives, and they're hoping that we could schedule it somewhere around January the 24th, which is a Thursday. Does anybody have a conflict with that?
At what time?
5 p.m. And the purpose of this meeting is to have public input. And that way, if any, instead of leaving it for the, a public hearing, if we had any concerned citizens that wanted to look at the maps and things like that, instead of feeling they may be rushed in a public hearing, we thought it might be more convenient and more accessible to the citizens to be able to come up here at that time and talk with y'all individually, look at the plans and look at the map.
You said 5 p.m.
Yes, ma'am, but I can move it. We have a gentleman flying in from North Carolina, and that's, I think, fairly convenient with his flight schedule. Would that be okay with everybody to, and we will advertise this in the paper.
Is it here?
Yes, ma'am. And I'll have the maps and big boards here at that time. Thank you. Next item is item number 9, is drainage issue. Staff at the direction of city engineer has made 2 changes. Mr. Hill's here tonight. He was instrumental in some of the changes to the road shoulder at the property owned by Mr. Freddie Richardson. Mr. Devane is still conducting and completing his review and report for the council. When that review and report is completed, he will submit it to you and to Mr. Richardson. I can tell you that, and I talked to Mr. Brown prior to the meeting, one of the issues that Mr. Brown wanted the city to ensure was not an issue was on the north side of the property. He wanted to make sure that none of the water on the road running east and west was flowing onto Mr. Richardson's property. Mr. Hill was, I think, the supervisor at the scene down there. They actually put a drainage ditch and opened up a catch basin on the corner, actually cut into a catch basin. Mr. Devane and myself and the mayor went down during the hardest rain event that we had. And it appears that any road on east and west, any of the water that was coming off the road there has flowed into that ditch and is not entering the property. There was one other area that Mr. Devane was concerned about water entering the property, and that was on Walker Street in front of the property. I think Mr. Hill again did some shoulder work there, just temporary, to see if that has alleviated the problem. And I'm waiting for Mr. Devane's review on that. He's the engineer. He's the one that told us what to do. We have tested the water to make sure it's not a water source associated with the city. It did not test for chlorine, so we know it's not any of our water that we're putting on the property. And I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have. And Mr. Richardson, as soon as he gives us a completed report, he will forward it to you immediately. Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson, for being patient with us, and we are working on it, and we will keep you informed. I went down there the other day, and the stitch that was done, it's like, they really don't bring around like it could be open, it's on parking now. There was the ditch in the front, now we got a ditch on the side.
That's correct.
And
that's why we cut it off before it entered the backyard, to make sure that the fence there would be able to be entered. But that city right away there, and I was tasked, and Mr. Devane was tasked with making sure that water from the road did not enter in on the property.
And what we're going to discuss tonight about the seeing if there was underground stream or anything.
That's Mr. Devane's option. He does not believe there is, based on a hole he and I dug out on the property. But again, I need to wait. He's the one with the degree, so I'm basically at his mercy for the report.
Does he have an estimated time that he can give us more information?
No, sir. I wouldn't want to tell you that and then him have it to me tomorrow, or if it takes another week. But I do know that he has been to the scene with me. He asked that we perform 2 functions there, and we have completed those. So as soon as he, and I'm sure he wants to, I know he wants to put it in writing based on his type of business. He would want to put it in writing and have his findings back to the board and to Mr. Richardson.
We should let Mr. Richardson.
Sure. That's fine.
So do you have a problem with Mr. Richardson had anything to say?
Be fine.
Okay. Would you like to address the board, Mr. Richardson?
Well, I went there, and checked the holes that was dug by the city. And the ditch that you all dug, water's still coming in, before you get to the ditch. And those holes right now are full of water. So, by them being full of water, is an indication that whatever have been done have not eliminated the problem. So I'm waiting for you all to find, before I go any further, but because I need it right from you all what y'all find. So that's what I'm waiting on.
And there is nothing we can do about the water falling on the other side of the ditch. That's beyond our control. So I can't answer that with confidence. That the
We dug a
water,
hole down there and see where the water.
the water entering on the other side of the ditch is where the good Lord puts it. There is nothing I can do to eliminate that.
House, and then moved around and kind of dug through the bottom. So there's not what came out straight. At that time.
Our next item is going to be canceled for the night. Our chief of police was called, he was due to be here, but they have an emergency with the police department. He's working on a situation that precluded him from attending tonight. Item number 11 is our wireless internet count, and that count stands at 55 for the month of December. November count was 55. Cable TV sub counts for December are listed on your agenda, and the sub count is at 1,058. We also have Employee of the Month, and as you all know, I usually choose the Employee of the Month, and this month it was Mr. Willie, or excuse me, the Employee of the Month for January is Mr. Willie Cody. And basically, I'd like to tell you what resulted in him being the Employee of the Month. As y'all know, we have several, well, we probably have 7 or 8 employees that are on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Sometimes I relieve them when they're off, they need time off and things like that. But in the gas department where Mr. Cody is employed, the superintendent was out due to an injury in an accident. The other gas worker was out sick. They called me, I came up to the city hall. Mr. Cody was on vacation. We contacted him. Our only other option at that point would have been to call in our consultant to have somebody on standby for any gas problems that might come up, which is required. We probably could have got our superintendent out, but gas work nowadays is very highly regulated by the Public Service Commission. Mr. Cody, when I contacted him, I think Mr. Hill contacted him for me. And Mr. Cody came in immediately, and he was on vacation. So very deserving of Employee of the Month, and that's the kind of employees we want to make sure get recognition, because it was something that he didn't have to do, but he did put the citizens in the city first. So congratulations to Mr. Cody. I have 2 other items, Mr. Mayor, if I may, because these are very important.
Okay.
And one was the MLK representative for the MLK ceremony at Walker Street notified me today that they would like to use Walker Street for this year's ceremony. I went on them and went ahead and approved that request. I know that the city has always supported the MLK Day celebration in the past, and I felt confident to go ahead and get that in so the city can make the necessary upgrades to the building prior to the meeting. I have had one other group contact staff about the Walker Street Auditorium. We do have guidelines on the use of the auditorium, but a couple of meetings ago we were kind of holding off on that. But I did tell the lady I would contact the board to talk to you all about it. It is a youth Christian group that would like to use the building. They will have 500 in attendance, they're estimating. It would be from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., ages ranging to small children up to 18. The lady seemed very sincere. She did say it would be of a religious type nature, youth explosion. And I'll leave it up to the board whether I should go ahead with normal practices and allow the use of the facility for that. It's in February. I have explained the situation as far as ADA accessibility and things like that with the person requesting. She understands the situation there.
We need a motion for that?
And would they be, they know they would be responsible for having the supervision for, when you start
Yes,
talking
sir, I
about wage?
think, and again, I'm overstepping my bounds here, but I would say with a group of that size, no matter what the circumstances are, what kind of group it was, the city would, I think, be prudent in saying that we would request there to be a police officer there at their expense. And with that type of crowd, I would also, very similar to what Valdosta says, with its fire chief permission, I would think it would be prudent to have that group hire a fireman for that period of time. Mathis Auditorium, they have a fireman there just in case of a evacuation or anything of that nature. So with those stipulations, I would feel comfortable based on the information that I received from this lady in recommending it to be approved.
And will there be like any sort of, because if you said we'll have one officer for a group of 500, is that going to, you know, kind of put a strain? Because will that mean that there'll be charter buses? Will that mean that we'll need to pull an on-duty officer to help park? Or because, you know, the front is very, I mean, that's a large group. I mean, I don't know that that's just an estimation.
That's
You may not have that many, but if that's what she's estimating, that can become an issue with parking. And if they only get one officer, then that means that either the chief or an investigator or the road patrol is going to be out there assisting with that also. So parking may become an issue. They'll have lots of children. They'll be transported in by some sort of church buses or charter buses or something to that effect. So we may have to request that they do more than one officer, because one will definitely have to deal with the parking.
Oh, yes, I think that's a very good
What was
point.
the age group one more time?
Very small children to 18.
You said 5?
She said, I think it was 5 or 6 age group.
5 to 18?
And it was
I agree with the council lady.
Have we got bathroom facilities down there to take?
yes, sir, they do.
You know,
They are not
that'd be
ADA.
that'd be more than one person can handle now. If they have 500 people, they don't, I think they need more than one.
We can certainly, we can basically, if y'all would like, I would feel uncomfortable setting a number, I think as y'all would. Would it be prudent to allow the fire chief and the police chief to determine the required manpower for their signing off? Because see, we have to sign off on that. Would that be,
It would be the proper.
I think I can speak for the police chief.
That'd be the proper thing
And I
for them
think
to
that
decide what
the
they
fire
need.
chief would know the occupancy levels, and he may even actually want to bring in more fire extinguisher, or even possibly have a truck on site, I don't know. But would that be okay if we
And
leave
then
it to
with that,
the...
because are we ADA accessible?
No, we're not.
And so then what, you know, what does that really mean?
Who would, the liability is there some type of insurance she's gonna have to get?
The city carries insurance on the building, but we can require an event insurance with the group, and that is at your discretion. We could, and it's not $1,000 or anything like that.
I would definitely want that, because if the children would be involved. And
That many people, I would want to,
Right.
and if y'all listen, I think that if you find out that when this becomes a reality, then I think the police chief and the fire chief, they can make a better decision as to
Yes.
what kind of help they need there to be sure that we're safe and the kids, the main thing is the kids are safe.
And I think the lady is being, wanting to be very forthright as
Right.
far as the numbers. I don't think she expects her to be 500.
Right,
But she is trying to plan on the safe side, and she seemed to be very genuine in the respect that she'd hate to say it's 100 and 400 show up.
Right.
So I think she's looking at the max number that would show up. But if that's okay with the board, then that's the way I will address it. Require the group insurance or event insurance for that, and then have the group organizer work with the fire chief and the police chief to determine levels of manpower they would require, and then they'll approve it back to me. Is that
That's good.
fair?
That's true.
Is that good?
Okay.
And that's all I have, Mr.
Need a motion on that. Approve it for that.
a motion for Danny to go ahead to, I'll make a motion for Mr. Herring to
Proceed under these
Proceed.
circumstances.
proceed with this
Okay.
function